Warning: this podcast will challenge your thinking. Welcome to Business Problems Solved. In this podcast, we help you solve your business problems by providing real examples and practical approaches to make today better than yesterday. Introducing your host, the multi-sector, self-professed, most improved improvement person and qualified business problem solver, Lee Horton.
Hey, it's Lee. Welcome to Business Problem Solved. Today, it's just me again. This doesn't mean we're running out of guests. I have got 3 series on. Is that the right word? Is that the right, how you say it? 3 series on the way, which I know that you will absolutely love. I'm loving recording them at the minute, and you will hear about these very soon. I can't believe also we're fast approaching episode 150. So amazing. Thank you so much for your support, and thank you so much for sticking with me on this exciting journey. Well, anyway, so why is it me again this week? Well, quite simply because really, I should have elaborated a little bit more on last week's episode. So last week we spoke about psychological safety and that failure is good, but ultimately in a work context, we want to make failure acceptable and make bad news visible. We want people to not feel like they are going to get chastised for raising stuff. And I shared with you the four points. So like leading by example, listening, creating a safe environment, and being open. Those are the 4 things that I recommend a leader can do to start moving towards creating a more psychologically safe environment where people feel empowered and able to speak up and share ideas, issues, challenges, frustrations when they've got those, rather than having to wait. So this week, I want to talk about something that I have spoken about in the past, but I think it's key in creating that safe environment. So creating that safe environment where people can talk out. I want to talk about visual management, but visual management is not just about performance boards. It's so much more than that. So if we just have a look at in fact, actually, the definition of visual. So visual is seeing and sight, and management is the process of dealing with or controlling things or people. So visual management could be summarized as being able to see the things needed to control the process or the people. And a lot of people, like I said, consider visual management to be the whiteboard, performance board, huddle board, because these are visual. Yes, it might have red and green indicators. It might have some charts on it. It may capture all your issues and problems. It might have all of these things. And yes, those are visual, but visual management is so much more than just your whiteboard. If we think of making failure or bad news visible, then we need standards. So we have clarity on what should happen or what it should be like. So we can recognize instantly when something may not or does not align with how it should be. So visual things that we can manage could be categorized as visual controls. So think minimum and maximum levels to give an instruction, flashing lights and fuel warning lights, so that you take action instantly on that control because something has happened. Or visual indicators. So you can have controls, you can have visual indicators. So think like your speedometer, your fuel gauge, just to let you know your temperature things. So just to let you know exactly where you are at that point in time. Think visual standards as well. So like road markings and signs, or even role modeling as a leader is a visual standard. So when people see you doing what you do, that is a standard that you are condoning. So that's an acceptable behavior because you are seen as a role model. So visual controls, visual indicators, and visual standards are all visual things that can be categorized within visual management. And thinking about it though, I'm not sure that we should just be looking at visual stuff. So let's consider sensory, depending on your environment. So our senses are sight, vision, which we spoke about, hearing, so auditory, smell, taste, and touch. So those are our senses. But if we had hearing management, smell management, taste management, touch management. And I would add to that feelings, because we make a lot of decisions based on feelings. So if we drop the word visual and use sensory management, I think sensory management allows us to create a safer environment for people, because it allows you to use all of our senses, all of your people's senses, to let them know where we are, where we need to be, and if there's any gap between those things as well. So if we drop the word visual and have sensory controls, so what warnings or instructions do we need to see, hear, or feel? Sensory indicators, what indicators do we need to understand where we are? And sensory standards, what standards do we need to understand the expectation? So a sensory standard, just think, you feel a particular way. You're sat there now or stood there listening to me talking, and you've probably made decisions based on how you felt. So how can you understand and get people to talk about these things? So how should things feel in a particular environment? What should it look like? What should it feel like? What should it sound like? What conversations could we hear? So I think sensory management as opposed to visual management is so much more fuller, and it allows you to really recognize that everybody is different. So how can you use all of these things to manage or control the process or people? How should things look? How should things hear? How should things smell? How should things taste? How should things touch? How should things feel to everybody? And when we think about psychological safety, that is a feeling. We want people to be able to feel psychologically safe, but only by talking about feelings and how it should feel in an environment can you actually overcome and create that psychologically safe environment. So we want to understand how should things look, hear, smell, taste, touch, feel, to understand what should happen, where we are, and any gap in everything we do, not just on a whiteboard. And that for me is why visual management is so much more than a performance board. It's so much more than just your charts, red, green, indicators. It's so much more than that. But then I am suggesting, I guess, that we should drop the word visual and have sensory management. So how should things look? How should things feel? How should things taste? How should things hear? What conversations should you hear? And if you ask people those questions and focus on sensory management rather than visual management, you'll get a far fuller, a far richer solution, and working towards this environment of psychological safety. I got a bit ranty then, didn't I? Apologies, but I think it's so important, and visual management is so much more than just a whiteboard. Visual management could be sensory management. That's what I want us to think about. How can we use our senses to create and help people understand where we are, where we need to be, and any gap that we need to close? And if you want to create psychological safety, that comes from a feeling inside. So the more opportunities you create to talk about how people feel and those things, the closer we can get to creating these amazing environments where amazing things can happen, and we can make today a little bit better than yesterday. Have an amazing, amazing week. And I'll chat to you next.
Thanks for listening to Business Problems Solved. You can contact Lee on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter by searching for Lee Horton, the Business Problem Solver, or via visiting www.leehorton.com for more content and to solve your business problems. And remember, saying you know how to do it is not doing it.